Ehsan coming to us from Vienna. Ehsan's going to talk to us about something he's written about extensively, which is Sasanian art, culture, and numismatics.
My best thanks to Joe for the invitation. It was a very late invitation, actually, a few weeks ago. And I was wondering, what should I present here? Then I looked at my desk in the museum. I realized that I'm working with a hoard. So I said, why not this hoard? And there's also another occasion. The hoard has been discovered exactly 50 years ago. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the ONS today. But at the same time, we can also celebrate the 50th anniversary of the discovery of this hoard from Bishapur. So before I start my presentation, I would like us all to remember our distinguished colleague, Alexander Borisovich Nikitin, who passed away a few weeks ago in St. Petersburg. For 35 years, he served as senior research fellow at the Oriental Department of the State Hermitage Museum. He was a leading scholar in ancient Iranian and Central Asian numismatics, archaeology, and epigraphy, and his untimely death is indeed a great loss for the field. So I would like to dedicate my presentation to his memory today. Well, I start my presentation from the coin cabinet of the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, with almost 600,000 numismatic objects. The coin cabinet of the Kunsthistorisches Museum is one of the largest and oldest public coin collections in the world. It originates from the Imperial Habsburg coin collection, and the oldest surviving inventory of the Viennese coin cabinet dates back to the year 1547. It houses coins and medals from all over the world, from the antiquity throughout Middle Ages and modern times, as well as paper money, dies, and other sorts of numismatic objects. Last year, the coin cabinet of the Kunsthistorisches Museum acquired a large collection of ancient Oriental coins, which has since then been named by us as the Jahrhundertsammlung, or collection of the century. It is originally a very rich private collection of coins from ancient Orient, which was collected in the second half of the 20th century by an Austrian physician and pharmacologist, Dr. Erich Lindmenzner. Well, having a great interest in Oriental history and culture, Dr. Lindmenzner built up his private coin collection not only through purchases from European coin dealers, but also during his own journeys in Eastern countries such as Turkey, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. 30 years after Dr. Lindmenzner's death, the Lindmenzner family decided to sell this coin collection through the German auction house of Mr. Fritz Rudolf Künke. It was very fortunate that Mr. Künke contacted Dr. Michael Alram first, the former director of the Viennese coin cabinet, to offer this collection in the first place to the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. It took the Kunsthistorisches Museum more than a year to raise sufficient funds to acquire this collection. In the meantime, Dr. Alram retired, and the fundraising process for this purchase was taken over by his successor, Dr. Klaus Wondrowetz, the current director of the coin cabinet in Vienna. The entire collection was eventually purchased in spring 2021. And at this point, it should be mentioned that this purchase only became possible thanks to the cooperation and patience of the Lindmenzner family, as well as the Künke auction house. The collection comprises a total number of 1,685 pieces from the ancient Orient, mostly from the Iranian hoard, of which 76% are Sasanian coins. What makes this collection particularly important is not only the quantity and diversity of its Sasanian portion, but also the quality of its Kushan gold coins. There are, well, if you compare the statistics of the Lindmenzner collection with those of the Viennese coin cabinet before this acquisition, it becomes crystal clear how significantly this new edition has contributed to the development of our Oriental coin collection in Vienna. As we see in the table, for example, the Sasanian collection of the coin cabinet has been almost doubled after this edition. As a result, the Viennese coin cabinet today owns the 6th largest public collection of Sasanian coins in the world. The 5 larger public collections are those of the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, the Historical Museum in Moscow, the Hermitage, St. Petersburg, the Iranian National Museum in Tehran, and the British Museum, London. In this table on the screen, we see the number of coins of each Sasanian king from Ardashir I to the second reign of Kavad I, which have been catalogued in the 3 main volumes of this Loge Numorum Sassanidarum, which are published so far. It includes all the coins of these kings in the coin cabinets of Paris, Berlin, and Vienna, as well as some selected pieces from various collections and auctions, which are documented in the NZK and Numismatische Zentralkartei, in the Kartothek of the Numismatic Institute in Vienna. The purchase of the Lindspender collection, as we see in this table, had a significant impact on the figures for the coinage of each Sasanian king in the Viennese collection. The right column shows the current figures of these coins in the coin cabinet, including the Jahrhundertsammlung and other recent editions. After these editions, not only has the total number of the Sasanian kings from Ardashir I to Kavad I in the Viennese coin cabinet exceeded those figures of the coin cabinets in Paris and Berlin, but also the Viennese coin cabinet now possesses the largest number of coins of certain Sasanian kings among these 3 major European coin collections. Of great importance is also the role that the Lindspender collection has already played in the 20th century numismatic scholarship. Dr. Lindspender was not only a coin collector, but as I mentioned, also a scientist. And so he could easily realize how valuable and important the coins he was collecting were, not only as collectibles, but also for scientific research. This should have been the reason why in the 1970s, he established contact with the renowned authority of Oriental Numismatics at the University of Vienna, Professor Dr. Robert Goebel. At that time, Goebel was preparing his seminal book, System und Chronologie der Münzprägung des Kuschanreiches. And it was not surprising that Goebel benefited in his dye study for the Kushan coins of the whole Kushan portion of the Lindspender collection. So many of the coins, actually all the Kushan coins from Lindspender collections have already been studied and published in Goebel's book, but without the notice that it belongs to Lindspender collection. They are signed just as privat. Among these coins, these Kushan coins, which Goebel already studied from the Lindspender collection, is, for example, a rare double dinar type of Vimaket Vices with a diademed portrait of the king in a square frame on the obverse, of which we have only less than a handful of specimens known so far. Goebel not only used photographs of the Kushan coins of the Lindspender collection in his book, but also, thanks to the permission and willingness of Dr. Lindspender, he documented the Sasanian coins of this collection in the Numismatische Zentralkartei at the University of Vienna in the Numismatic Institute. As soon as the collection was purchased by the Viennese coin cabinet last year, the inventory and photography of the collection objects started. In the beginning of July 2021, exactly 1 year ago, I was given the task to scientifically document this important coin collection. The documentation of the collection includes the control of technical data, description of the coin images and legends, typological identification, and giving relevant scientific references for each coin in the internal database of the coin cabinet, which you see just one example of which you see on the screen. More than 90% of the Sasanian coins from this collection, so let's say more than 1,000 pieces, have already been completely documented. and entered into the museum's internal database. From these, about 400 coins have also been made available online on the IKMK portal, which is the interactive catalog of the coin cabinet, ikmk.at. The rest will be uploaded in near future. However, in addition to digitalization of these coins, the coin cabinet is also planning to publish this collection, the Jahrhundertsammlung, in printed form as a supplement volume to the series Siloge Numorum Sasanidum. As a result, the academic public will soon be provided with a standard catalog of this significant collection with necessary numismatic commentaries on its unique items and peculiarities. Now we come to the so-called Bishapur hoard, which is part of this newly acquired collection, the Jahrhundertsammlung, in the Viennese coin cabinet. It is a hoard of 174 silver drachms of the late Sasanian king Khosrow II. The provenance, archaeological context, and original content of the hoard is unfortunately uncertain. It was reportedly found somewhere in Iran, reportedly in Western Iran, exactly 50 years ago in 1972. Unfortunately, through illegal diggings. Soon after it reached the antiquity market, the Austrian collector, Dr. Erich Lindbentner, purchased it for his private collection. But he immediately made this collection, this hoard, available and accessible to the specialists at the Numismatic Institute of the University of Vienna. The hoard was photographed and documented by Professor Wolfgang Seifert, who was at that time writing his doctoral dissertation on the activity of Sasanian mints under the supervision of Robert Goebel. Seifert benefited from this hoard in his dissertation, which he defended in 1975. But a few years later, he dedicated an individual, brief but insightful article to the study of this interesting hoard. The article was published in Jahrbuch für Numismatik und Geldgeschichte in 1979. In the course of documentation and digitalization of the Jahrhundertsammlung, I found an opportunity to revisit this hoard in the past few weeks, which is still a work in progress. As I mentioned, it contains 174 silver drachms of Khosrow II. We may not be sure whether this is the whole content of the original hoard or only a part of it that was offered by a dealer to the Austrian collector. But well, in this picture, you see only 2 trays filled with the coins from this hoard, as they are kept today in the coin cabinet in Vienna. All the pieces in the hoard represent the Goebel type 2/3 of Khosrow II, with the additional marginal legend apt, which means excellent, wonderful, on the obverse. They all are issued in the 13th regnal year of Khosrow, that is the year 602 or 3 of the Common Era. All the pieces are preserved in a very good physical condition and barely show any traces of corrosion or wear, which means they have been hardly circulated. The composition of the hoard shows that it was probably deposited shortly after the coins were issued. Therefore, a date at or shortly after 602-3 might be suggested for the deposition of this hoard. Only one piece bears the mint mark GD, Gede, which is probably which stands probably for Gay or Jai, which is the present-day city of Isfahan in central Iran. And the rest, which means 173 pieces, are all from the mint of Bishapur with the mint mark Bish in the Fars province, ancient Persis in southern Iran. Despite the uncertain provenance of this hoard, it might be speculated that it originates from Bishapur or somewhere nearby. And for this reason, Seifert has named it the Bishapur hoard. What is most remarkable about this hoard is the volume of die-links between the specimens from the mint of Bishapur, which provides a perfect material basis for studying the production process and output of the Sasanian mint in a single year. The 173 pieces from Bishapur in this hoard are all produced of all the product of only 12 upwards dyes and 11 reverse dyes, as you see on the screen. This clearly shows that all of them have been issued in a very short period of time, maybe only a few days, maybe a week, who knows. It also shows that several dyes were used simultaneously and changed frequently with one another. As Professor Seifert has already observed in his article, it might have been due to the use of heated flames, which would have quickly increased the temperature of the dyes while striking. And therefore, in order to avoid damages to the dyes, each dye needed regular resting times to decrease its temperature slowly after being used for a while. In the meantime, the used dye should have been replaced by another cold dye to proceed the minting process. Hence, the frequent change of dyes in a short time span. The density of dye links in this hoard provides us also with quantitative data about the rhythm of coin production in a Sasanian mint. I'm sorry. Yeah, I experimentally tried to estimate the actual number of dyes used at the Mint of Bishapur in the 13th year of Khosrow II during the short time span which our sample represents. As I said, probably only a few days or a week or so. For this estimation, I used the geometric model of Warren Esty, which was published by him in an article in 2011, which you see on the screen. He suggests a couple of formulas. I have selected two of the formulas which are which I use for this study today. Well, the first formula estimates the coverage of the sample. The coverage means how thorough and how representative the sample is. And the second formula estimates the number of dyes in Esty's geometric model. In both formulas, N stands for the number of coins in the sample, D stands for the number of attested dyes in the sample, and D1 stands for the number of singletons. Singleton is a dye that has been attested only by one single specimen in the sample. Now let's apply these two formulas on our sample from the Bishapur hoard. The estimated coverage is quite high, very close to 1. Well, 1 is the ideal, but it is usually never 1. So, but the samples we have represent something like 0.99, 0.98. So it's a very close number to 1, and it's a very representative sample according to this formula. So as we see, for both upwards and reverse dyes, our sample appears to be strong and representative. The dye number estimator produces interesting results for the number of upwards and reverse dyes. Based on our sample from the Bishapur hoard, the estimated number of upwards and reverse dyes for the concerned time span would be about 13 and 14 respectively. It means that in our hoard, only 1 upwards dye and 3 reverse dyes are absent, theoretically. This estimation shows that the real ratio between the number of upwards and reverse dyes should have been rather different from what is actually attested in our sample. In other words, although in our samples we have a smaller number of reverse dyes than upwards, in reality, the number of reverse dyes was probably slightly higher than the upwards dyes. It is in fact a logical result. In reality, the upwards dye is fixed in the anvil below the flan, while the reverse dye is held in the hand above the flan and hammered. Therefore, the upwards dye would be damaged faster and has to be changed more frequently. So, to conclude, I should say that today we are fortunate that this hoard, 50 years after its discovery, well, it's as old as the ONS, has not been disappeared in the market or private hands like many other important hoards have been, but rather it has eventually enter to a public museum where it is being studied and digitized. And soon this hoard, as well as the rest of the Jahrhundertsammlung, will be not only accessible online, but also published in a systematic Siloge volume. Thank you for your attention.